Here we go. Okay, we are recording. So like I was starting to say before I remember to hit record, I am Dr. Koch, and I am one of the faculty co-advisors for Secondary Educators Club. Dr. Rupnow is there in the room with those who are in person. And let's see, I see Sam and Hannah. Do we have anybody else there, guys?
Yes, we have Hunter, Allie, and Jacob.
Okay, all right. So we have a few. And then we received a lot of requests to have this recorded. So I think that without it being like a huge turnout, that's probably the reason a lot of people emailed me asking me if it was going to be recorded. So so we are going to record and we will send this out. And so because of that, for those of you who are there in person, what I would really like you to do is try and find somebody, which shouldn't be too hard because there's not very many of you there. Find somebody relatively close to or the same as the content area that you are going into. So if you're going into English, see if there's anybody else in English there. If you're going into math, see if there's somebody else in math there. Whatever it is, it just would work well if you're working together. And for those of you who are online, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's just to kind of toss around some ideas. We're basically going to actually make a lesson plan. We're going to be talking through this, thinking, hey, what are some different things that we could do and help each other as we complete the lesson plan together? Okay, that's my goal with making this an interactive lesson plan template. That we are doing it together. That's the whole purpose. Okay. So for those of you who are on chat, I have a couple of things that I'm going to give you, and that is the lesson plan template, which if you are there in person, you have a copy of that in front of you.
Yeah.
Let me find it. Where did I put it? Oh, there it is. Okay, and then for those of you who are on Zoom, here is the new updated lesson plan template for you. I just put it in chat. Okay, and then there's a couple other resources that I'm going to give you, and I will send these. I have a bug that's trying to get in my way. I will send these to the rest of you via, well, I can just email them to Dr. Rupnow, I guess, and you could send them from there. So resource guide and rubric. And we'll just have to do it separately. Okay. So there is the lesson plan rubric that is used to be able to grade the lesson plan template. And then here is the resource guide. Okay, so you all have everything that you need in chat, and when you are, those of you who are there in person, I'm going to share my screen. Everybody's going to be looking at the resource guide. That is what we are going to use today to walk through this together. Please, please, please unmute, stop me. Those of you in person, just like yell out. I'll hear you eventually. I kind of get in my own frame of mind when I'm teaching this thing because there's a lot to it. And so I'll just kind of keep talking if you don't go over the top of me. So you may just need to say, hey, Dr. Koch, Dr. Koch, Dr. Koch, like get my attention so that I will stop talking long enough for you to ask whatever question that you have. Okay. It's interactive for a reason. I apologize that I'm not there in person. My surgery is tomorrow morning. And so I'm just trying to get everything ready as best I can. So that being said, let's do a share screen here and let's get started. Sorry for not doing any fun activities like right in the beginning. I mean, we just want to jump into lesson planning today. So it is what it is. Okay, so are you looking at the lesson plan template resource guide right in front of you? Perfect. Okay, so basically, so as I'm looking at this, as I'm helping you go through this, I'm looking directly at that too. So I'm actually not looking at you right now because I tried to set up my secondary monitor and it decided to literally just like fizzle out right in front of my face. So I'm not even looking at you to do like the thumbs up and things like that, because otherwise I can't see my resource guide in front of me. If anybody has any better ideas, let me know, but I always have it over here on the right side and I don't know where else to put it so that I can see you. Any ideas? Can I move it?
Nope.
Yeah, see, you're still in the way. Can you see that? Oh, I think I fixed it. Okay. All right. I can see some of you. Okay. So lesson plan template resource guide, first and foremost, right up there at the top. And those of you who are on Zoom, you can be filling out a lesson plan right along with us if you want, or you can just take notes on it. The resource guide that I gave to you and that I will, well, Dr. Repnow, I provided that to you. Would you want to maybe email that file to all of them who are actually there in person?
Sure, I will.
And it can be after. It's just keep track of those who are there in person who would want those extra resources.
Well, you have this or you have. the
Oh, I have
empty
the
one?
blank one. I don't have
Yeah,
that one.
we all have the blank one. I will work on sending the resource guide.
Yeah, just get email addresses of those who are there and I can send it as well. If you don't have that resource, I just wanted to give it to them. I wanted them today in person to be able to fill out, but for the resource
Yep.
guide, I just wanna make sure they have the link. So, or they have the file, but let me know if I need to email it or whatnot. So.
So I got it.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Okay, everybody. So first and foremost, obviously, you know how the whole top thing works, okay? First and last name, date and time of lesson. So what you need to remember about lesson planning, okay? I'm going to make it very personal for you. I'm going to make you very, very uncomfortable right now on purpose, okay? What you need to remember about lesson planning is you need to learn how to lesson plan so that somebody else who doesn't know anything about the subject that you're teaching could take over your class and teach it as though you were never gone. Okay. Will you have to lesson plan to this detail every single day when you are teaching? That is a really big heck no. Okay. You're not going to lesson plan to this detail when you are teaching every single day. You would die. Okay. That's not what we're doing. We are teaching you to lesson plan to this amount of detail so that you do not have to lesson plan the way that I learned how to lesson plan. Trial by fire. Okay. I graduated from Nebraska Wesleyan University for my undergrad. We all make mistakes. Okay. It is what it is. Now, what basically happened during those 4 years of me going to Wesleyan was about nothing. I gave them a lot of money to not teach me how to lesson plan. That is the God honest truth. That is what really happened. I had no idea. So I get into teaching. I don't have a clue how to lesson plan. I don't have a clue what an IEP is. Okay. I know absolutely nothing. And I get in there. I do pretty well. I mean, I managed. I had wonderful mentors who helped me. But I was just lesson planning because, I was doing the skeleton lesson plan that we call it. Okay. And basically what was happening with that was I would do a lesson plan so that I knew what I was doing. And when there was a sub, I would do my best. But a lot of times my subs would end up showing a movie, babysitting my students, not actually teaching them anything because I didn't know how to lesson plan and I didn't understand that my students deserved to be able to continue learning when I wasn't there. That was something I didn't get. Enter 2012 and my husband's 4th suicide attempt proves to be near fatal. Okay, this is where I'm going to make you uncomfortable. Okay, it is what it is. Mental health has to be talked about. It can't be something that is scary. Okay. This is a reality that we live. So little plug for Tame Hawk, talk about it. Mental health on campus, our new student organization for mental health, little plug for that. Have to do that. But basically I was gone for almost 3 months as my husband survived this near fatal car accident. Okay. He drove into a semi. So during those 3 months, the person who took over my Spanish, my special education coursework, and my caseload had 0 experience in Spanish and had -0 experience in special education. And yet they were doing everything. They were doing my entire job, and she was a wonderful human being. But I had to lesson plan almost scripted. Well, not almost, it was scripted while sitting next to my husband as he fought for his life in the ICU. That is where I learned how to lesson plan. Would you like to learn how to lesson plan the way that I did? Does that sound fun to you? Okay, then I would listen. And no matter how annoying it is with how detailed we require you to be, I would like you to channel my story. And I would like you to say, Dr. Koch does not want us to learn how to lesson plan the way that she had to learn how to lesson plan. Okay, it's because I love you that I'm going to be very, very hard when it comes to grading lesson plans. Fortunately, you're not grading. You're just in a nice little voluntary meeting. Isn't that nice for you? Because I would send it back to you 5 or 6 times. Okay, very personal with lesson planning. All right, so we're going to continue here now that I have made you all sorts of uncomfortable. We are going to continue on down here. You need to note the grade level and subject. If you are there in person, try and find somebody to work with or do it yourself. I don't care. But I would like you to think of a lesson that you would likely teach one day. Okay? For me, I'm actually just going to say, all right, I'm going to teach lesson planning someday. So that's going to be my grade level and subject. My grade level is going to be, excuse me. My grade level is going to be college students. My subject is going to be teacher education, because that's what I'm doing. Okay, think of something you would likely teach one day. If you're English, maybe you're going to teach grammar. Okay, some form of grammar. Maybe literature. Maybe you're going to teach The Outsiders if you're an amazingly awesome teacher like I was, because that's the best book in the whole wide world. Okay, like think about something that you would likely teach. Then identify the unit and then enter a unique name for the lesson just for easy identification. So mine's going to be UDL lesson planning is what I would put, because I want to make sure that this lesson planning has a focus on universal design for learning, which I'm also very passionate about. Okay, so those are the things you're going to put up here at the top. So take notes as we're talking. Make sure you write down anything that you want to, including an actual lesson. Okay, write down the tips, write down the hints, write down ideas from other people as we go through this. Okay. Then we have the context of the lesson. The context of the lesson is where we get our Nebraska state standards. But is anybody in an area that does not actually have standards? Okay, some people are, exactly. So we may have developmental indicators instead. We may have IEP goals, actually, if this is a special education lesson plan and we're working with a student with more moderate to severe needs where their lessons are being modified. This might be an area where we're actually putting an IEP goal because we're not following a state standard for those students often in different areas. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, this is where we can include the ISTE standards. All of these things are linked in this resource document. All you would have to do is go in there, find a standard that you are going to be concentrating on, and you'll know those when you get into your new job. You'll know which standards it is that you're supposed to be teaching based upon your district curriculum. Okay, so you're going to find those. You're going to copy and paste those into the area, the actual standard and the text behind the standard that details it all out. You have to make sure that those are there and that they are linked in this lesson plan template. Okay, and this is the template that you will be graded on when you get into student teaching. Okay, so all of these are resources that you'll want for later on as well. Okay. Then we get into the essential question, which is something that is a lot deeper than an objective. Okay. The essential question is an open-ended question that connects the objective, and the objective is what the whole lesson centers around, right? Everything has to tie back to the objective. Okay. So the essential question is an open-ended question that connects the objectives and the standards of the unit to a deeper purpose of learning. Okay, so for you, my essential question would be, do students understand the purpose of lesson planning with enough detail so somebody else could successfully take over their class? Okay, so I basically framed the essential question when we very first got into this lesson planning interactive workshop. Okay, I explained to you my personal connection to this and why I really want you to learn how to lesson plan with great detail. Okay, so that would be my essential question. It links the objective, which has to do with the lesson plan, to the greater purpose. That's the most important thing. There's even a link in here in this resource guide to essential question examples. So look at all these resources that we've created for you through the lesson planning committee that I was a part of last year. Great, great, great. Very, very smart people working on this. Myself, I just sat there and smiled and nodded. Okay. All right. No, I'm joking. We had a great time with that. Okay, so then we get into the learning objective. How many of you have actually written learning objectives before? Okay, I'm seeing quite a few hands. How many of you have used the ABCD method? Have you heard of that method? Perfect. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. When it comes to a learning objective, it is absolutely essential that that objective is measurable, it is specific, and we do not have any subjective information in it in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so if we use the ABCD method, the A is audience. Obviously, most of the time it's going to be students. That's fine. However, if this is a lesson plan that you're doing for only 1 or 2 people, you can name them. Go ahead. That's great. Okay. So with the learning objective, I use that ABCD method. So the A was audience. Then we have the behavior. Behavior is the verb there. What is it that we expect the students to do by the end of the lesson in order to say that they have passed the lesson successfully and that they are ready to move on? Okay. What is it that we are expecting them to actually do? Sometimes a behavior can be that you're expecting them to be active in their learning, really to just be paying attention. Okay. Well, that can be really subjective. So we have to be very, very clear on what we expect that behavior to be. A lot of times it involves maybe an exit note, an exit ticket, exit slip, however you want to call it. A lot of times it may involve that if it was just a class where you're just expecting them to sit and listen. Okay. Make them do something to show that they've actually absorbed the learning. For this situation, with your behavior, maybe I have you turn in, I'm not going to, okay? But maybe what I would do in my classroom is I would have my students turn in the notes that they took on the lesson plan template handout that I provided you, okay? Then I would just know that you were listening, that you were following along, and that you were actually turning something in to show that you were doing that. Okay. Then we have the condition for ABCD method. The condition is the teacher. What is it that the teacher is providing that ensures that our students are set up to be able to be successful with this objective? So the condition in this situation would be given lecture via Zoom and in-person classroom work. That would probably be the condition, including a handout with the lesson plan template you got. Okay, that's a condition because that's also something that I was responsible for providing. Okay. And then we have the degree, another very, very important. The D of the ABCD method is degree. And that is where we are stating this is what they have to do in order to move on to the next lesson. Now, again, if this is just a participation grade, all that I would put in the degree is maybe the students will complete their notes on the lesson plan template with no blanks in any of the boxes. That's all that I would need for the degree. Okay. If there are no blanks, then I know that you followed along throughout the entire thing. And maybe that's how I give you a participation grade for that. Okay. So my objective for this class may be something like, I'll just write it down. Because I like ABCD, but I actually use ACBD. Okay, so I might write students, given online and in-class instruction and resources, including the lesson plan template, will complete the lesson plan template handout using ideas from class. Successfully to 100% accuracy, meaning there are no blank boxes. It's not perfect. It's not even lovely, but does it have every aspect of ABCD? It does. And could I measure it? Yes. So if a student tries to hand in a blank template, I'm going to say, yeah, no, you did not meet the objective. We're going to meet, we're going to go through this together, and you're going to do it again. Okay. Before we move on, we don't just ignore it when a student doesn't meet an objective. That's a big no-no. Okay. We don't just ignore it. We reteach. Sometimes it's individual, sometimes it's whole class. But if you're doing your objectives successfully, if you're writing them successfully, you know whether or not your students are meeting those objectives and whether or not you should be moving on or if you should be reteaching. Okay, that's the whole purpose of an objective. Pull this off so I don't accidentally save it and then everybody's going to wonder what the heck happened. Okay, so that's an example. Do we have any questions on objectives or anything yet at this point? Is this helpful so far?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Could you repeat the ABCs of the learning objectives again?
Of course. Here, let me type them here, honey. Okay, audience. B equals behavior. C, sorry, everybody's named honey. That's just how I roll. Condition. And D equals degree. Okay, so then if I write that objective again, I would say students given handouts and in class / Zoom lecture will complete the lesson plan template handout with their notes to 100% accuracy with no blank boxes. Oh, look, I did a better job this time. Okay, so then what I would tell you to do is I would highlight. I love doing this. Let me pull this over to the other side here. Okay, I would highlight and I would say audience is going to be my A. So for audience, it is students. Okay, my behavior is going to be green. So behavior is what I want the student to actually show me that they could do. So they will complete the lesson plan template handout with their notes. So that's green. Okay, the condition is what I, the teacher, am in charge of providing. So I'm going to do that in blue and I'm going to give them handouts in the in-class Zoom lecture. So I'm going to highlight that in blue. And then the degree, meaning that I know that they have achieved it, that's going to be to 100% accuracy with no blank boxes. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight that in pink. Okay. That is my absolute favorite method of doing objectives because I can see it. It works so well for people's brains when we can actually set that apart in those different colors. And honestly, I know that it's backwards because I tend to go, instead of A, B, C, D straight down there, I do A, C, B, D. I do that because the C, that condition, is set apart in commas. And it makes sense in my head because I'm the one who's responsible for that. Okay, I'm the one who has to provide the handouts and the in-class / Zoom lecture. So I have that separated out by commas. Okay, just a little mini tip that works really well for my brain. Maybe it'll work really well for your brain too. Okay, does that help?
Yes, thank you. I like that method.
Oh, same. Yes, it's tried and true. It's easy, and it just seems to help a lot. So great questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. All right, so then you guys keep in mind that this resource guide that Dr. Rupnow was sending to you, that I'm using in front of me, and that you have within the chat, that is what I'm using right now. All of these links are meant to help you to be able to lesson plan effectively. I'm not going to go through all of those links because you have the resource guide. I'm going to be your resource for this, but be sure that you're looking at those and you're using those because they are very, very helpful. Okay. Okay, so then after we have our learning objective, remember that is the whole purpose of the entire class and everything has to relate back to that. So if you're doing any assignments or activities later that really have nothing to do with the objective, you really need to be asking why you're doing that. Okay. And that will help you to be able to know what kind of a grade you're going to get on the lesson plan and whether somebody else can follow it. Because we tend to get confused when we're taking over somebody's class if we're doing something that really doesn't seem to have anything to do with the objective. So everything is going to tie back to that. Okay. Okay, so then we get down into the previous knowledge and sequence of learning section. So this is where we're tying the objective that we just made into previous and future knowledge. Okay, so we're just saying essentially my students who are learning about lesson planning right now are in the teacher education program or will be eventually. They are learning how to lesson plan effectively so that they can use that knowledge when they will use this exact template to be assessed during their student teaching experience. Okay, see what I did there? I said, you're in the teacher education program. So that's where you have already been kind of leading up to this. You know that you're going to be a teacher. And in the future, you will be assessed over lesson planning utilizing this exact template. So it all pulls together. That's the sequence of learning. In fact, we want to go really, really far. We can say, additionally, students, when they're in their careers, will be required to lesson plan daily. We want to ensure that our students know how to effectively lesson plan so that somebody else could take over their classroom effectively. Okay, that's what we mean by the sequence of learning. Just give a little bit of a background as to why you're doing this. If none of it fits together, you need to rethink why you're doing it. Okay. Okay, then here is where we get into the diagnostic or pre-assessment. Keep in mind, a pre-assessment and a post-assessment can be the same thing, but they don't have to be. Okay, maybe I give you a lesson plan template and I say, why don't you write some notes on this and see if you even can't see if any of it makes any sense, or just write some questions in the boxes that we could address together in class. Maybe that's my pre-assessment. Okay, and I collect them and I look at them and I say, hey, these guys have some great questions, or oh my gosh, look at this one. They have a really good understanding of the objective. Maybe that student can help me teach because maybe that student is a high ability learner. Oh my goodness. And a student who's a high ability learner in this topic may have been a person who was really struggling in a topic 2 weeks ago and really could use a little bit of a boost in the social emotional area. So what if I, as the teacher, use that pre-assessment to pull that student in and allow them to be part of my teaching when it comes to this? What do you think that would do for a student's confidence? Okay, so we can use the pre-assessment in many ways, but mostly the point is to gauge learning. How much do the students already know about this? If they already know a lot, pull them in to help you. If they don't know a lot, you know that you need to pace. You may even need to use some groups with some higher ability learners mixed in with some lower ability learners. There are so many things that you can do with that knowledge that you gained from the pre-assessment. Okay. Then when you get into the post-assessment, again, it can be the same thing. So for this objective, my post-assessment is the lesson plan template that you filled out with your notes, right? Because that was what I said in my objective. your post-assessment is directly related to your assessment, or your post-assessment is directly related to your objective. So if you go into that objective and you look at that degree and it says it needs to be completed to 100% accuracy, and they were going to be taking notes on the lesson plan template, your post-assessment is them handing in the lesson plan template and you determining whether or not they got a 100% on it by filling out all the boxes. And maybe filling out all the boxes involved them asking a question saying, I didn't understand this part. Okay. Hey, they still filled it out. And that tells you that you need to reteach something. Okay. Okay. Any questions on pre and post assessment? Did that hopefully clear up some stuff for you when it comes to that? We tend to overcomplicate assessments. Don't have to be so complicated.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm a Spanish teacher and I've struggled with the pre-assessment since it's a foreign language. The only thing I've come up with is sometimes we can build or just kind of start with a grid of this is how we learn these pronouns in English, and then it's transferable, but it's just, I don't know. I just wondered if you could speak to that. I kind of get stuck there.
You know what? Being a former Spanish teacher, I can speak to that a little bit. And I can tell you pre-assessment, they know nothing, right? Most of the time, they know absolutely nothing. Honey, your pre-assessment can be a verbal question. Hey, have any of you heard about any of these? What do you know? Tell me what you know. Do the KWO. What do you know? What do you want to know? KWL. What's the L? What do you know? What do you want to know? And what did you learn? That's later. Yes. Okay. You could do the KWL. So that's just a bunch of columns and have the students fill out the K on what do you know? It may be blank, but at least they handed it back into you. That's a pre-assessment. Don't overcomplicate it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, no problem. You just have to learn how to detail that out so that people who think that they're smarter than us can give us a better grade on it, right? Okay, any other questions about assessments?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So, like, when I'm going through this with you, I chose like business ethics as an option for like the class or the topic for like a business class.
Perfect.
So, like, if you do like the do's and don'ts of business, and I'm looking for like a pre-assessment on like business ethics, would like the example you gave for her kind of be the same? Like, what do you know, what would you consider, an ethical whatever? Or like, how would I go about, I guess I kind of have the same question. Like, how would you go about like approaching that? Because obviously by the time they get to the ethics class, they've got, probably introduction to business. They've got some of that knowledge, but maybe not all students have it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you could have fun with that one. That one's a fun one. So what I would do, honestly, in a like intro to business ethics, I would give them a situation, and you could even put them in groups. If you want, a pre-assessment doesn't have to be individual either. Okay. I mean, as long as you're walking and you're listening to them talk and you're getting them involved and in that conversation, maybe you give them a situation and you see, what would you do in this situation? What's right? What's wrong? Get them talking about it. Get them excited about the idea of learning about business ethics. And then just let them talk. That's a pre-assessment because you're letting them ask questions. You're walking around, you're listening to them. As long as you're not on Facebook on your computer, that's the assessment, right?
Okay. Yeah, like I didn't know if it had to be like a written thing or, if it had to be like, like a kind of a like survey type deal or how that was.
Nope, not at all. Most of the pre-assessments that I do are verbal or in-class activities.
Okay.
Great question. Yes, of course. Any others? Okay, somebody put something in chat here. I want to make sure. Oh, somebody had to leave. Okay. Okay, I'll go into that later. Okay, so let's continue on then with learner background. It's super important here in learner background to keep in mind that if you're gone, okay, like I was for an extended period of time, we need to know very specific characteristics about the students in your class, about how the students work together, So there's just a lot of different things to consider here. You can list general and individual developmental characteristics like social, emotional, physical, cognitive, and language. Make sure you include general attributes and specific characteristics of individuals that may impact the way the lesson is taught. Okay. If I have an individual in this classroom who is an English language learner, perhaps, they may have a really hard time following along with as much as I'm talking rather than writing to give this information. So it would be a really good idea if I know that I have a student with a hearing impairment, even if it's a small hearing impairment, to go ahead and make sure that they're enabling closed captioning on anything. Okay. That needs to be put in there. Okay. And that can be an accommodation, which would go in the second part, but sometimes we have students who don't have these disabilities defined. Sometimes they don't have IEPs and we just need to know that information. Okay. So we also need to know, multi-language, bilingual needs. Like I said, if we have an English language learner, in case I need to really slow down, provide a script, possibly even get the script translated into their language. Those are all things that we would need to know. Okay. You can use your students' initials to identify specific students for a substitute teacher, because that is information that they would need to know in order to help support the student the best that they can. So you can use those initials and say, KJ needs this or whatnot. That's totally fine. Okay. Okay, so think about different things like the physical, social, emotional, cognitive traits. There are links here that you could go in and take a look at just to keep an idea of what you may include in this situation. It's going to completely depend on your classroom, on the needs of your learners. And there's all sorts of different things over here that we would want to possibly keep in mind. Student interests and readiness for this task. So something that maybe you already know about what they're going to find out in a pre-assessment. Maybe you know that the students have absolutely no experience with any of this whatsoever. Put that in there. We would want to know that. Trying to think of anything else in the learner background. Oh, if you have any students who are identifying in a different way than what they appear to be or than what is on your list, like genders or anything along those lines, if you know that information, respectfully add that information to your lesson plan template so that a sub can also be respectful of that in their classroom. Okay. The bottom line is you are in charge of having a safe and respectful classroom. That's it. No more politics, no more discussion, nothing on that. Every single student in your classroom is welcome, and that needs to be reflected in your lesson plan template. Got it? Good. Okay, end of discussion on that one. All right, so then we get down into the IEPs, the 504s, and or the accommodations that students have. You do need to list either the names or the initials, depending upon what your situation is. If a student has the same initials as somebody else, we're obviously going to need to list a name, because we are responsible. If we're not there, the sub is responsible for providing accommodations for those students. Okay, so they need to know who they are. We would need to note the specific accommodations that student requires for that lesson. Okay, so if the student needs a scribe to be able to take notes, that needs to be listed there, because this is a highly active note-taking classroom objective. Okay, this lesson, that's the word I was getting to. This lesson is very, very active in the note-taking. If they need a scribe, that needs to be listed there because they're going to need it for this one. Okay, possibly recording the lecture would be helpful in that situation too, but again, that'll be listed there in accommodation so that a sub can find that. Okay, be as specific as you possibly can, and if you do not know, go ask the case manager. Okay, there is a case manager for every single student with a disability. Go ask them, what is it that I need to provide for this assignment, for this assessment, for this class period? Okay, they can help you. If you're unsure, just ask. No big deal. Okay. Then you need to list all of the materials and references for the materials. You're not stealing them. Okay. Give credit where credit is due. You need to list all of the materials that are needed. If you need copies of a certain worksheet, link it so that they have that. If you need to have technology for the lesson, make sure that they know so that they could go in ahead of time and practice and get set up. Provide references for any borrowed resources that you have, and then always include hyperlinks to any assessments or tools, any printable activities, websites, etc. All of them linked throughout the lesson plan as well. Okay. Any questions? You are done with the top part of your lesson plan. How are we doing? Good. Okay. All right. So guess what? The top of your lesson plan is totally set. Let's review that learning objective. So I want you to take a look at your learning objective. If you didn't write one, that's fine. Let's take a look at mine together, and we're going to start building that lesson together. Okay. So my learning objective was students given handouts and in-class/Zoom lecture will complete the lesson plan template handout with their notes to 100% accuracy and no blank boxes. Okay. So that's literally my lesson. I need to make sure that I am teaching my students how to do that. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Things to think about. First and foremost, if we are doing an introduction, the point of the introduction is the anticipatory set, the hook. Ladies and gentlemen, think back to how we started this. How did I hook you? Did I give you an introduction, or did I just go right into it? What did I do? I didn't hear that.
You hooked it with the personal story.
There you go. I did hook it with a personal story. I told you why you're learning about this, because I don't want you to have to learn in the way that I did. So hopefully I got your attention and I helped you connect to the material in a more personal way. So you know that the person who's standing in front of you cares that you learn this well, and you know the reason why. Okay. So my introduction here would be very detailed out. I mean, very detailed, you guys. Could you tell that story the same way that I just did, just by hearing it one time? Probably not. Okay. So in the introduction, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write Dr. Koch's personal story, ... And guess what? I'm actually going to write Dr. Koch's personal story right here in the lesson plan to the detail that somebody else could read it and be able to actually tell my students all about it. And the reason for that is that I'm not going to use that when I'm actually there, am I? Do I need to read my own story word from word? No, I don't. But if I'm gone, somebody else does. So we need to have it totally detailed out. You can even put in a video right here if you want to. That's up to you. Okay. You could say, here is Dr. Koch's personal story. And since it is so personal, here is the video that you can show on the screen for all of the students. Would that be effective and a good introduction? Possibly. Okay. So how are you going to get the students to connect to the material? How are you going to hook them? That's the whole purpose of the introduction. Okay. So we know that the introduction over here, this part right here, is going to be Dr. Koch's personal story. So now in that area, I'm going to look over to the right, and it says differentiation. Describe specific adjustments to each section below that anticipate students' needs. Okay, in this classroom, you have access to the lesson plan template in front of you, right? Okay, exactly. You're looking at that. You can be taking notes as I'm talking. You also are listening to me talk, and you're seeing me be very animated. And sometimes, honestly, when I'm telling that story, guys, sometimes I can get emotional. Okay, that's an easy way to help you connect to that material. And there were 3 different ways for it right there. Okay. Also, if you weren't able to really pay attention at this time, or perhaps you were absent from class, I'm recording this right now. Hey, guess what? You can go back and you can look at this anytime you want to be able to get that information. That's all differentiation, utilizing universal design for learning methods. Okay, so look in more and more universal design for learning. You can never know too much about universal design for learning. Okay, I will tell you that right now. So look at that. There are 3 things that I was doing right there. Accommodations. What do the students with IEPs or 504 plans need from me during that time? Honestly, a lot of times we may even just write in that spot, differentiation covers the need for accommodations in this section. I didn't have to do anything different for my students with disabilities because all I was doing was I was talking and I gave all these different options for you to be able to access that information. So under accommodations, it's okay to write differentiation in this section covers the need for accommodations. But if I had a student with a hearing impairment, I would have needed to provide a script, or I would have needed to provide a scribe. Okay, that is where that information goes, and you need to include the student's initials or name. Okay, questions on that? Okay. Also, then we need to look all the way over to the right, and a formative assessment is basically just data that we're taking constantly to see if students are progressing towards the final ultimate goal, which is the degree of our objective. Okay, we're always going to be looking and seeing how things are going. So in this situation, the formative assessment is that Dr. Koch is walking around the classroom. Actually, it's Dr. Rupp now for me today. Okay, or wherever he happens to be, he's looking and ensuring that students are following along with the material. If somebody's sitting on their phone, that's going to be a time I'm going to note the student is really not connecting to this information. So maybe I need to go stand next to them. Okay, whatever it ends up being. Again, don't overcomplicate assessments. It does not have to be a paper and pencil. We are constantly assessing type situation. Okay, sometimes assessments are very just in the moment, you're just watching, but you do need to write that down and be specific regarding what it is that you're looking for. Okay. Then what we're doing after we put our introduction information over here, we are basically connecting that information to the objective. So the objective was that the students are filling that out and completing that. And my essential question was, do you understand that how to connect what you're learning with the lesson plan to your future career? This is where I would detail that out. I would say students are utilizing this personal story to connect to the information in order to be able to utilize the lesson plan template, to take notes on it for their personal use, and eventually connect it in student teaching, and then be able to be assessed over that effectively. So we're just showing how does this actually connect to the objective. Simple as that. You just have to write it out. Okay. And again, if we needed any differentiation approaches to delivering objectives and essential questions. So as I'm telling you that personal story and helping you connect to it, was there anything else I did for differentiation? This may be exactly the same thing that was up here, and that's okay. Okay, it doesn't have to be different. The same differentiation techniques that you used here may be what you were using here. It is in my case, because in this case, I was just explaining to you how my personal story connects directly to what it is that you're doing in this class today. Okay, so nothing different in differentiation there. Same for accommodations. Okay, and formative assessments, this is blank over here. What I like to do, because I don't like to see any empty boxes, what I like to do is copy and paste directly from this one into this one. That way it's the exact same thing. There's no empty box that comes up as like a red flag. It can be the exact same thing. That's totally fine. We're just making sure that we are connecting the information to the objective. Any question on introductions? Are we doing okay? Am I going too fast or are we all right? Time's up. Good. Okay, all right. Well, it's not going to take us much longer, you guys, because all we have to do is core instruction and closure, and these follow the exact same thing as the introduction does. Okay, so the core instruction is where we list the sequence of teaching. Again, be specific. Here is where I'm going to be literally detailing out everything that I'm saying, starting clear the heck up here, where I started my lesson, where I started talking about the context and where you enter the grade level and subject and the essential question. I am going to script it out because I need to know that if I am gone, Dr. Repnow could lead this class the exact same way that I would be, because I'm the one who wrote the objective. I need to know that my students are getting that information. Okay, but I would have to really be specific, because Dr. Repnow, would you have led this exactly the same way?
He had to leave for an emergency, but I'm sure he would.
But he wouldn't. It would be different. Okay, it absolutely would be different. It would still be effective, but I'm the one who's teaching this. I'm the one who's held responsible for the learning here. Okay, Hannah, would you have taught it the same way?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Now, if I wrote it out word for word, would you be able to lead it?
Yes.
That's the idea. Okay. And I know that scripting is not exactly fun. I know that's not fun. But you guys, if I was gone tonight, do you deserve to get this content the way that I am presenting it? Yes, you do. Okay. So I'm going to do my job. I'm going to put in the extra work. And guys, I will tell you, it is a lot less work to just be at work than it is to be gone from work. And you probably already know that, right? The work doesn't just wait. It doesn't just go away. It waits for you, right? That's where, if we are more detailed, the better we learn how to lesson plan, the more effective we can be later on, and the easier it is on ourselves. Okay. So again, we're going to detail out the entire core instruction, usually 30 to 35 minutes of the class period, or this core instruction, maybe even more. So it's gonna be long, and that is okay. Again, you're going to have your differentiation approaches in here. Are you using video? Are you randomly stopping to ask questions? And guess what, guys? I've been doing that the entire time. That's over here in formative assessment. I've been asking you constantly, okay, I'm going to pause. Do you have any questions? And you've been great. You are asking questions. That is formative assessment. Okay. Don't overcomplicate it. Sometimes maybe you want them to turn in something halfway through the class period. That's fine. That's formative assessment too. Sometimes maybe you're going to do a fist to 5. Oh, are you okay? Do you have a question? Or somebody tries talking? Are we okay? All right. Oh, it's the camera's going to follow Hannah. This is fun. Okay. So fist to 5 is something that I love. And so this is just a separate little nugget of wisdom. So what I'll do with all of you right now is I'm going to say fist to 5. How much more confident are you feeling about lesson planning now than you were when you came into this class period? Okay. Fist is I feel no more confident. 5 is I feel like, oh my gosh, I learned so much. Okay. How much more are you learning? All right. I'm seeing a 4 here. Fist to 5. Show me. Okay. All right. I'm seeing a 3. I'm seeing a 2. Okay. All right. It's better than none. I'll take it. Okay. Now, for those who are not feeling as confident, I'm going to be taking a little mental note throughout there. And I'm going to say, hey, let's meet and go through this together. Or I'm going to say, email me your specific questions, because I understand sometimes it's kind of scary to be asking a question throughout all of this. Fully understand that. Just email me and hey, I am here for you. I'm going to be having surgery tomorrow. So trust me, I got nothing better to do. Okay. You can ask me questions anytime and I'm thrilled to help you. So in that core instruction, like I said, you're going to get as detailed as you possibly can. You're going to list all the required accommodations that you need for those students who have IEPs. Don't forget, you can list their names. You can list their initials. That's totally fine. But everybody look at me. You cannot list their identified disability. Okay. That is what you cannot list. You can list the students' names or the initials and the accommodations that they need for that lesson. If they have 13 accommodations, but they only need 2 for that lesson, don't give them 11 unneeded accommodations. We don't want to help these kids become completely dependent upon everything we do for them. Our goal is to create independent individuals, correct? Don't give them unneeded accommodations, okay? So you will not list their disability, but you will list the accommodations that they need for that lesson, okay? All right, then go down here to the bottom. How are we closing all of this together? So for all of you, I'm gonna stop screen sharing here in a little bit, and we're just gonna talk. How do you feel? Do you have questions about all of this? Are you feeling more confident? What was not clear? What could I help you with? And if it really wasn't clear, guess what else we're gonna do? We're going to set up individual times to meet and go through the material together so I can clarify anything for you specifically in your content area. I'm not going anywhere, you guys. Okay. So if anybody needs to hang out a little longer, that's what we're going to do. Okay. That's my closure. My closure for this class is very individualized. Okay. So at this time, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to stop my screen share. We're going to come back in here and I'm going to look at these questions. Any way you could send me the recording, I absolutely can. And another person had to, yep, also wanted the recording. Okay, sounds good. I can handle that. Okay, any questions? How are we feeling? Well, apparently I'm just an amazing teacher. Is that what we're getting here? All good. I got time. Kenny, what do you think? You're our president. How you feeling, dude?
I know I have questions. I'm not quite sure what they are though. So
Fair. A lot of times these questions can be very, very, very individualized because of the fact that maybe you're like, okay, I get what you're saying with how to fill it out, but I need to apply it to my content area. Just email me. Okay. Simple as that. Just email me. Where will the recording be so that we can reference the information later? Kathy, do you get my emails, or was this through a different teacher that you got the information?
No, I get your emails, and I also have the Canvas page as well.
Then it'll be on there. Okay.
Okay.
If anybody is not on like the Secondary Educators Club Canvas page or in my advisees, like when I send out emails to my advisees, it goes to like 400 people. Okay. If you are not one of those people, just email me and say, hey, can I get the recording? And I'll pop it over to you real quick. I will upload it to YouTube tonight. So that it's shareable.
I think you're also like my second, I guess you'd say like secondary advisor. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
So
with
you'll
the
get my
business,
email through that.
yeah, because with the business I have Elise, but then for the education side I have you, I believe.
Yeah, you do.
Okay,
I'm the only
cool.
one.
I want to make sure I had the right person.
You're fine. Yep. I'm the secondary advisor for all content areas across campus. So I have like 400 and some advisees. So
Okay.
when I send out emails, it goes to a lot of people, and I just always encourage all of you to contact me if you need anything, because I can't meet with all 400 of you. Or I
Right.
definitely would have quit my job by now.
And kind of like Kenny, I know I'm gonna have questions. I'm just not sure like what they are right now. I feel like I got a pretty good grasp, but then again, I don't have to write one for somebody else at this moment.
Absolutely.
So-
And that absolutely. And that is not a problem. My desire to help does not extend only like an hour or two after this meeting. This is a forever thing. I am thrilled to help in any way that I can. Even if you're working on a specific lesson, I will not give you the answers, but I will brainstorm with you and help you, collaboratively come up with some different ideas that you could use. I'm very passionate about universal design for learning and finding ways to really engage students. So that's, an area of expertise, I'd say, or at least an area of passion.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for the information and I'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Anybody there in person? Any of you have questions? Oh, there you go. Erin, go ahead.
I have a couple.
Sure.
I don't know if I'll remember them all, but one, so I feel like planning, like I'm not definitely, like it's not going 100% effective all the time for me, but I feel like the main things that I'm focusing on, because I feel like they're decent plans, at least what I'm doing so far, is how to what's the word? Like how to, like when the lesson is not going as planned or the students I can tell are not following along, those like having that flexibility to know what to do next. So for Spanish, it's been really interesting, but there's a lot of concepts that the students, I could tell like by 4 quizzes in, like they're not getting the concepts and they're repeated, it's cumulative. But then when I would ask students, what is it that you don't understand? Or how can I help you? Like they just have that, there's a handful and it's better now, but they would just be lost and they wouldn't be able to tell me what they don't understand, or they give, and I teach 9th graders, or they would give me I don't get anything. Like I don't understand anything. And so my question would be how to direct them.
Okay, so what I would do in that situation is if they are not getting it from you, I would start putting them in some groups and try and do a little bit of peer learning. It is possible that maybe they're just not understanding it in the words that you're using to explain it. So sometimes we have to take a step back. We have to understand that we may not be the right person to explain that specific task, whatever that ends up being. And maybe we need to try a little bit of a different method of teaching. And a lot of times that's cooperative learning. Okay. So I would say, maybe some of your higher achieving students in that situation, maybe kind of put them in groups with some of those students who are maybe struggling a little bit and allow the higher ability learners to essentially teach it as part of their project. And maybe your students who are struggling a little bit, maybe what they need to end up doing is that they're going to be then explaining it in their own words, however that may end up being. But I tend to find that cooperative learning tends to really pull students out of something because their peers are explaining it in just a little bit of a different way than you are. So
Okay.
that's what I would try. Have you tried that yet?
Yeah, we did today. So far, we're coming at the end of our first unit. And instead of me handing them a study guide, we worked in groups and did a collaborative thing, which none of them got. But I've kind of been centering on the collaborative piece from the beginning.
Okay.
And so it was interesting that they didn't, I don't know. But so that was really cool. I felt like it helped me even know more about my students as individuals, because not everyone had to present. Some were editing, some were collaborating the information on a document, and the other 2 were presenting. And so I really saw some great leadership come out of by giving that opportunity to students. And I kind of know, like, there's, a couple of kids that really excel at it. But yeah, it's just kind of like correcting those roots for the kids who, and yeah, it's all new. It's tough to like do all of the things and stay on top of, like, I know in the beginning, first off, I did not do enough of those. Oh, I don't know the fancy language, but like checking to make sure that they are getting it. And then speaking to that target.
Okay.
So
The other thing that you may get to a point of is needing to have individual meetings with students. And so you can have like group work be happening over on one side and you can be working with individual students or groups of students. Don't forget that you can always do that. Or you can ask a student to come in, after school, and not because anybody is in trouble, but just say, I'd really like to schedule a meeting with you because I feel like you're not understanding this and I want to be able to help you be successful. You'd be surprised at how excited students can get to be able to actually say, okay, yeah, I agree with you. I'm not entirely understanding it. Let's meet. Let's get together and figure out what's going on. So don't hesitate to take a few minutes. You might be surprised at how quickly those issues can get resolved when you're having an individual meeting. So
yeah, and I reached for that, and unfortunately all of the kids, like we've had 5 kids just drop with
Oh.
no meetings, and they have activities after school and they want to do that instead of meet, or I do teach part-time, and so but I've increased my availability to meet at lunch, I guess is really common. But thank you, I appreciate those suggestions. My other question is, so yesterday I happened to be talking to a new teacher who recently graduated from UNL, and she said the exact same thing you said in the beginning about Wesleyan. And I wondered, well, I mean, not exactly. She said, I became more aware of how not to be a racist and how to be inclusive, but as far as any of the behavioral piece, and any of the, like, basically, she didn't feel like she took away anything other than those 2 things, like how not to be a racist and how to be inclusive. So I wondered, like I've heard Doan has a really good program, but like, I guess, I don't know, like, I know you're not here to answer this question, but it just kind of makes me curious. Like how are educational institutions setting up teachers to be successful in the classroom if they go through, the 4-year program and they're not leaving with this sense that they can be confident educators?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I can't tell you what the other schools are doing, and it's been almost 20 years since I graduated from there. So I'm guessing that there have been some changes. I'm just going to be very honest about my experience, and then I did not learn how to lesson plan. So what I know is that here at UNK, we are staffed with people who are educators teaching other educators. We've all had experience in the public schools. We're all constantly required to do more research, more service, more teaching. And we're really in there. We're part of the community. We're trying really, really hard to ensure that you are able to connect to the material. And a lot of times we're putting in the extra hours, which is what we're doing tonight, right? I think that's really probably the big difference is that, and maybe others are too, I don't know, but I know that where I work here at UNK, we're driven by passionate, capable instructors. And that's the only way that I can explain it. That's where I'm very proud to be affiliated with this institution and know that our students are going to come out of there and you're going to know how to lesson plan, whether you like it or not.
Well, thank you. I appreciate hearing your thoughts on that.
Yes, of course. Thanks for your question. And holler if you have any other questions, or if you want to like powwow and get some more ideas for your Spanish classroom or whatever.
Okay, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Any other questions, everybody? Okay, let's just say we will break for the night. And if you have any questions at any time, just email me. I will send out this recording to my advisees and on our Secondary Educators Club Canvas page. If you are not a member of Secondary Educators Club Canvas page and you would like to be, just email me and we'll go from there. So my email is kobj@unk.edu and I'll put it right here. And all right, I love you and goodbye. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, Dr. Koh, there's 3 of us left in here.
All right.
Dr. Ruff now had to leave for some family, something he said.
Said one of the kids had to go to the hospital.
Oh yeah, kids had to go to the doctor.
One of
some-
his
I don't know
little
if it
ones? Oh,
was a
no.
doctor or a hospital? I don't remember what he said. Something.
Well, I
Um,
doubt you go to the doctor this late at night, so probably hospital. Oh, no.
Yeah, so I'm not a teacher in this building. What do I need to do to close up the room for the night?
Yeah, okay, you know what? After we get off of Zoom, it's going to go away. So, Sam or Hannah, one of you call me.
Hannah also had to leave.
Okay,
So-
so Sam, get your cell phone out and call me, 308.
Okay, hang on just a second.
Okay.
Run.
Okay, 308
325
325